Hey, so as an entrepreneur, you've probably heard this. Just do you. And I remember at some point in my life, on my journey, I was wondering, what the hell does it look like? What exactly does it mean? And it sounded really, really cool. Just do you, right? But then I remember I was sitting in the kitchen back in Ireland when we lived in Ireland, and I was thinking, I don't know anymore what that is. And that was actually quite an agonizing feeling to have. So today I have a guest that I invited to talk about these kind of things, what it means to just be you, do you, how you unpack it, and let's see where else our conversation is going to take us. And welcome to the From Grind to Grace podcast, the podcast for the alternative entrepreneur, the entrepreneur who is ready to flip the script and choose freedom first. When freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the way you do your business, because when you stop grinding for freedom, success just follows. And that's actually when you start feeling I've made it. So the goal is to make this the new standard in the industry, the default for you, for your children, and for humanity. Because we're not here to grind for freedom. We are here to create from freedom. And so with that, I want to welcome my beautiful guest all the way from India. And when I say all the way, actually, I was shocked that the time difference wasn't even that much between where I am in Lithuania and India. That was a bit surprising, only like 4.5 hours or something like that. Right. So very, very welcome. She is and then Shubi, I think that I got your permission to call you that, right?
Yeah.
um, so she is helping exhausted firstborn daughters heal inner child trauma, empowering them to feel whole, seen, and valued without losing who they are, right? And I know this intro is about firstborn daughters, right? For the most part, but I do believe, and Shubi, tell me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that this applies to everyone.
Yeah, it does. First of all, thank you for your intro. Just like hearing you, it was very activating to hear about your podcast and just like being there with you. I was like, oh my God, I am so excited.
Oh, so super. Thank you.
And yes, all the tools that I'll be sharing, all the value that I'll be sharing, it can be applied to everyone. For me, this niche, this intro means a lot because I am a firstborn daughter and I had to overcome different things in my journey, which my younger siblings didn't have to. So
Hmm.
for me, it's kind of like I was born with the niche. So that's why I have that in my intro. But everything I shared, it could be added, it could be taken away with by anyone who is on the journey of their spiritual journey, their personal growth journey.
Yeah, and I'm also firstborn, and we share that, right? When we chatted before, um, same, right? And it's so fascinating how much in common we have and how much we are defined in a way by being the first child in the family, with all the responsibilities, with all the need imposed need, I should say, probably to achieve,
Mm,
to be an example, right?
big one. Oh.
Right. So I guess we'll touch on those things for sure. And so I believe it's going to be useful even from that perspective for so many people, because for so many entrepreneurs and women, because we don't necessarily understand how we are affected by being the first one or the second one or the last one, maybe, and like it does matter, right? So tell me a little bit, okay, so what it looked like for you, what happened, how you ended up in what you're doing now, just something, so a bit of your story.
Wow, that could be the whole podcast in itself. I'll try to keep it short. I I remember when I was young, accidentally I scored good marks in a test. And I did not know it. I was just doing my thing. And my parents tell me that in the parent teacher meeting, my teacher said like she's a young, brilliant mind. You should hone her talent, blah, blah, blah. And that's how my parents started seeing me as a talent. I suppose I was 7 or 8. So until that time, my parents hadn't figured out I was some kind of a genius person. So they were just like, okay, she's average, she'll do good. Yada yada. But then it just I became a project. I did
Mm,
not know, and my parents did not know, but I almost at that age, and my parents had my younger sister also at the same time. So there was a lot of cultural conditioning, like you're the elder sister now. You should
mm,
be an example. What will she learn from you if you do this? Not being able to express my own emotions and not being able to be angry or frustrated or even sad in front of my parents
right,
because I
right.
had to hold that persona and be the role model. And oh my God, that was a very difficult childhood. And then my parents had their third baby, which was my brother. And after that, things escalated quickly because I
Mm,
felt detached from my family. I had my own room. I would lock myself. I would do my own thing. I was still good in academics, but I was withdrawing. And spiritually, now I know the changes that were going in me. And even on a psychological and emotional level, I would try to escape situations by escaping my body, by becoming numb. There was conflict in front of me and I would not see it. There were
mm,
emotions inside of me and I would chug myself with some sweet or just numb it. Like numbing was the way to go. And somewhere in my mid-teens, I had some spiritual experiences and they were so bad. They were
as
so
in like
frightening.
difficult.
Yes, it was almost with a 15-year-old brain, I'm trying to process what's
Mm,
being shown to me, and I have no support. The internet did not exist back then.
right.
Like there was internet, but I did not have access to, I didn't have a personal internet or computer system at home. And I almost shut myself down even more because it became depressive because I even started having suicidal thoughts. This
Wow.
was too much. This was too
Wow. Did you tell anyone about it?
no.
Wow.
And I started suppressing it. At that time, I was also introduced to spirituality and I was starting to talk to God in a way. And my parents were worried about that too. But because the depth of these experiences kept frightening me, I shut that part of me down. I kind of had a breakup with God, if you can call it.
Right.
And then again at 25, 24, 25, when the world shut down and, the big C word happened, the everything started closing in on me. I almost felt so pressured in my environment. I felt pressured in my job. I used to be in a relationship back then, so I felt pressured in that relationship. I felt pressured in my existence. And there was so much heaviness, there was so much confusion. And I did not know how my life took me there. It was
Mm,
almost something I'm trying to make something of my life. I was in a really good job. I was kind of living the dream from the outside. Like on paper, you'd be like, wow. like you're doing so good. And then inside, I felt this hollow sensation again, and my spiritual journey started to unfold. And oh my God, I felt like I was being slapped every single day with reality, with my own feelings being hurt, with suppressing all that trauma and not knowing what exactly to do. A big part of it was my inner child not feeling safe because I became the elder sister and the role model. And throughout my teenage, I pretended to hate everyone and even myself, pretended to be angry on the outside when on the inside I was just hurt. By just hurt, I don't mean want it to sound low or like it's just a thing, but there is so much sadness that I was suppressing. There was so much grief inside of me of not being able to express myself as a child,
Mm.
not being able to have a childhood even because of all the expectations that were placed on me. And my healing journey took me to very interesting places, crying out loud with healers, with coaches, sitting in circles, being witnessed by other women, talking to other people who are on the journey and experiencing similar things. And somehow we are just here now through all that trial and process and going through that journey.
Yeah, and it's almost typical. I'm listening to you and I'm saying typical because it's been the case with many, many guests of on this podcast as well, and but from different angles in terms of different aspects. But I'm listening to you and I'm recognizing myself as well, not being able to express myself, not being able to, and the way we were growing back in the day, I remember, like when you look at kids now, they can say almost anything they want. And like back in the day, I remember there is no way we could say anything like against, like if my father was given out, there was no way I could even explain myself, let's say if I didn't do it, like he was punishing me for something and I didn't do it, I couldn't even explain it because opening my mouth to say it would be arguing with my father and that would be bad, you know. So like you said, totally shut myself down, like, and I didn't perceive it. That's the worst part, right? I didn't even know that I was like crawling into this cave all the time, and was hiding. So how did you, and I had experiences, very powerful experiences as well, not necessarily in relation to those things, but those experiences showed me a lot. And as part of that, the follow-up to those experiences, I was resolving at least part of the stuff that I was carrying from my childhood, you know. And well, how did that happen for you? Like, when did you understand that you had some baggage from your childhood and that it was necessary for you to resolve it?
Mm. There were many moments, but one of these moments is coming very vividly to me. I was not so much into personal development, but I was somewhere there. And there was a friend at my workplace who I used to talk to because she used to host some meetings and it was about creativity and art, and it was a club, and I that's how I met her. And one day I was just like, you know what? I would really love your help with this issue that I'm having with my parents. I would love to know how I could speak up to them. And then we were sitting outside, how do I tell you? So I used to work at an MNC, and picture there were multiple buildings, and between the buildings there are cafes and stuff. It's a typical MNC office, and there are benches, and we're sitting on a bench, and she's talking to me, And she's making me ask questions. And she's like, let's role play your dialogue with your parents. Like, how is this one gonna go? And I remember crying, like literal. The first time I cried, I felt like being truly seen. And it didn't matter that
Mm,
everyone was having a snack break and they were seeing me like a complete mess. In that moment, I did not care. And I feel that is when I realized that I had some form of trauma within me, something within me that was way bigger than just this one conversation, because I did not feel resolved, but I felt, oh, this shit is deeper than I expected. Like it could be
mm,
solved in 30 minutes of chat with a friend. That's how I got to know. So if someone listening is wondering, do I have any inner child trauma? Let me clarify it for you. All of us do. So
mm,
even the most conscious parents will not be able to save their kids from trauma, because it's
mm,
how it's every generation has a different level of understanding than the last, and sometimes we are unconsciously giving things to them that we don't see. So, and if to anyone watching or listening, and especially if you're listening, you probably have it. So, and not to demonize it or demonize you in any way, but anytime you feel you had an irrational response, like when you're in a situation and you said something that you didn't want to, it's almost like a 7-year-old brain that's responding. If you see a response from the outside, like an event has happened, and then you picture yourself and the other person, but you're trying to justify, no, but I was angry, no, but I was da da da. In
right.
whatever we are trying to explain or justify, to see, is it rational? Is it something that you would label an emotionally mature person to say? Because if that isn't, there's probably something lying deeper within to be resolved.
Yeah, and I think, and for me, one of the indications was, that I realized that it was when I remember I started catching myself doing or saying things that I really didn't really want to. Like if I sit in a quiet place, I'm not in that situation. I think to myself, why the hell did I say that or do that or whatever? I shouldn't do it again. But then when that situation comes up again, I'm like, there we go. Same thing again. Those patterns. So it doesn't matter how much you rationalize. If
Mm,
you have that inside of you, like on the some subconscious level,
mm,
that's a clear indication, at least for me, that something needs to be resolved and
mm,
removed and cleared and whatever, you call it. So how do you think it was affecting? And because I'm speaking to to entrepreneurs who are trying maybe who find themselves in a place where they are feeling stuck, where they are feeling that something is off. Maybe they lack that authentic feel about what they are creating, what they are selling, how they are showing up.
mm,
Maybe they've been grinding for a while and started questioning that. Maybe not, but maybe will now, so for somebody like that, what would you say, how what we carry from our childhoods and in our subconsciousness and our bodies affect or manifest in, what we do, how we create or don't,
mm,
or, or how we show up or
mm,
don't, you know? Um, what do you think?
Wow. So our inner child shows up differently for all of us. For some of us, it's the performer, the A grade, I was that one. And then
Mm,
there's the perfectionist, there is the overworker, there is the nurturer, the person who nurtured their siblings. So we have these different archetypes playing out.
right.
So when you're in business, see your pattern. What are what do you shy away from? So if suppose someone's having trouble making content and going online, going live, or recording something, or maybe even recording but not posting it, or
Mm,
maybe you are giving just free sessions and not charging for it, like very nurturing and very giving and not being able to receive, or whether you are perfectionist, like this post is 95% there, but not 100, so I'm not going to post it. This does not satisfy my standards. So understanding where you are holding yourself back, first of all, like seeing, okay, I'm not doing this. What am I not doing in my business? And being really honest with yourself. Some of these things are gonna suck. Like they're gonna suck really bad. And I know because I've been there, I've done that myself. So when I analyzed myself, I was like, shit, this is hard. Like looking at yourself in the mirror. And we don't want to villainize ourselves in the process. We're just taking stock. So don't go in the shame spiral or the guilt, like I'm not doing it. And once you can see what the archetype you're playing out, what the pattern you're playing out, okay, the interesting part here is how did I do this in my childhood? Is this something my parents expected me to do? So, did my parents expect me to be perfect? Did my parents expect me to take care of my sibling?
mm.
Did my parents expect me to do everything like my studies and the house chores and taking care of siblings so they can relax? How do I embody these characteristics as a child and now as an adult? How is this translating? How can I how can I bring light to that pattern? And also something that's very helpful is where do you feel your boundaries are being violated, especially with respect to your parents and family, like that's a big one. Also in workplaces, like where are we overgiving if someone's in entrepreneurship but has been working while back. So one of the patterns for me especially was getting the approval of my bosses, because I was always stuck in getting my parents approval because it was never good enough. Like the perfectionist, the A player had to come out every single time. And I do remember I was so proactive in seeking, like I would go to my boss would not even have that many one-on-ones, but I would be like, okay, tell me what can I do better now? Like tell me what will get me the next promotion. Like I would want to collapse timelines. I would grind, just like what the podcast was like, grinding myself. So what is the pattern you're seeing in the business? And now map it to your childhood, map it to your relationships, personal, professional, and everything, and see how these two are connected. And once we bring that awareness, some of us are going to cry. I'm a big crybaby for that whenever I hear or read something about myself, and let those emotions out, because as soon as you can allow that to pass, maybe just bringing awareness is enough, or sometimes you'll have to sit and cry. Like there's also ugly crying, but once we can bring light, it's almost like it starts dissolving.
And what do you think those tears mean? What activates the crying? What what is that?
So when something happens for us and we have an emotional charge or an emotional reaction, and we're not able to express it in safe spaces. So, suppose you're a kid and you felt really unseen by your parent at some point of time,
Mhm.
and you were not able to cry because you know that if you cry you're gonna, like in Indian culture, I'm not very proud of this thing, but some parents, and thank God this was not the case in my family, but some parents would beat their kid if the kid starts crying, so as a means to protect it themselves, the kids stop crying. And I know that it's forgetting because there are so many videos that I see, like big comments like these. People saying like just slap them twice, like they'll shut up. And I'm like, You don't know how much therapy money they'll pay like later down the line because of just one thing. Mm. So when we're not able to express those emotions, they get trapped. And
Mm,
some of it becomes disease, some of it is just there. And when we open that memory, we are in a safe space that starts coming out. So once you bring awareness to these patterns, it will start coming out because it's a very long overdue emotion. But when it does come out, like we feel
mm.
so relieved because it's just like, okay, now I'm free.
Yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. I was thinking, I just remembered, about um one episode from my own journey. I was talking to a coach, I think maybe about 3 years ago, and I remember she was asking me questions, and I can't remember the whole sort of order or what exactly was asked, but I remember this word strong,
Mm,
came to my mind, right? And it made me, and it's so strange and fascinating, it made me so emotional. And it made me, I started tearing up, and I realized, and I was like, what the hell is just a word, strong, right? And I was like, wow, I'm so done being strong.
mhm,
I am so tired, because underneath you are still a human being with emotions, feelings, and whatever. And I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, apparently, which I didn't know for a while, that I built a wall and people didn't even see I just looked like I have no nerves. I have no, everything is great and cool in my life. I'm so strong, and I don't feel anything. And they can just say anything they want and whatever, and then I'll just do more and more. It's just it it was so sad to realize that. Was it similar for you?
yeah, I feel like I numb, like what you're saying is the similar experience I shared, but for me it was like completely numb. Like that's the way that I would describe it, but it's exactly the same. Like I would numb myself. So no matter how much you hurt me, like these walls are there. My obsessions are there. Like I had a big obsession of sweets and chocolates, and like that was my numbing process.
Mm.
Or like watching um and I used to think like how I used to do this, but I would put on my earphones and play a show randomly, and I would chop vegetables, I would do everything. Like silence was not my game. I was like constantly feed something to my mind, feed something
Mm,
to my mind, and I would numb out. And I would hear the characters playing and I would not even pay attention, but it would numb out what I was feeling.
mm.
So shove it down. Exactly. Like I feel all of us have the same thing, and we're just learning how to undo all of that now.
Yeah, and the other fascinating thing about this is, and tell me if that's your experience as well, even though we build those walls, underneath we actually develop very, very high sensitivity for the environment.
Mm,
And like, because in order for us to function somehow, we need to learn how to read the environment and people around us so we can sort of like navigate the situations without getting involved too much, uh, through guessing how is gonna somebody is gonna react to something, and right.
yeah, just avoiding the situation
It's
altogether.
it's so crazy. Like, on one hand, we are sensitive, really like sensitive people. At the same time, we can't express that sensitivity, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
so,
that's so fascinating.
yeah. And also, and you mentioned something that made me think of, I think the big moment for me was on my journey when I finally felt sorry for myself, deeply sorry for myself. But not only that, somehow I felt sorry for myself for the first time, like in like ever, but without like making myself a victim. But it's more like from the place of stopping blaming myself, like,
Mm.
seeing that I was conditioned, programmed, and also that somehow also meant being sorry for other women like that. Somehow there was interconnectedness in that. Sorry for all these women through being sorry for myself. I don't even know how to explain that, but that's how it came to me, right? It's what. So how do you think? Like, is it important to feel those kind of feelings for yourself
The
in
sorry.
yeah, in terms of healing, compassion, self-compassion, or something like that?
Mm.
As
How
in,
do you
like,
that?
giving yourself grace and understanding, okay, I've been almost like in a trap, or I don't know, I don't even, is there is there value in, allowing yourself to just take it easy and be gentle with yourself, right?
Mm. Okay, I'm still confused. So can you help me clarify? So by being sorry for you, like what do you exactly mean? Because I'm getting mixed.
I felt it's okay, sorry. I felt for these all these women stuck in the grind, stuck in these in self-blame, self-doubt, second guessing, being in the trap, trying to move things, trying to create something, but not being able, and being in this cycle of I'm doing more and more, but I'm getting less and less, I'm creating less and less, and then that, like, oh, this is why. And I just like, and most people, most women don't even know that they are stuck in this because of XYZ reasons, which are not what they think. They
Mhm,
tell themselves, I just need to grind more. I need to take massive action. I need to push through my fears. I need to read more scripts so I know how to handle rejection or something
mhm,
like that, but oh, and then for me it was like, oh, that's not even it. That's not where I was even looking.
mhm, mm. Okay. So, okay, there's so much I want to say. So I want to give a pretext of masculine and feminine and things that we've forgotten. So a
Yeah.
very good book, if someone wants to look this up, is The Queen's Code by I guess it's Alicia Armstrong, if I'm not butchering her name. So she talks about these different roles that we have, and it's like every teacher talks about, like the masculine is the doing part and the feminine is the being. And it's not that you're female, so you should just in the being energy all the time. We can do, we can. I'm a very masculine person myself, but being too detached from our original nature is causing so many problems within the feminine energy. And the more the word is evolving, and the more women are going out in the workforce, the problem is the word has been built by men. It is built on 24-day cycles. It's a 24-hour cycles, a day cycle. And we are not able to hone our or use our intuition. We are not able to use our natural body's rhythm, our 28-day cycles, or even the way that we function, because our estrogen and progesterone levels vary throughout the month. I'm not so much into the research, so if anyone's interested, please go look it up. But how I'm going to be today is very different from 14 days from now. It's going to be very different 7 days back. So I'm not playing to my strengths. I'm not playing to am, how I'm built. So most of us women, when we enter the workforce, we are trying to see and trying to be a part of it by seeing men, by competing with men, by trying to become men. So one of the things that happens is we get so detached from our feminine nature, and the feminine is the feeling nature. It's that soft gentleness where you feel safe, where you feel nurtured. And the more the culture is around, and there are so many stigmas and like it's a whole shit show. Like there's no better word than a shit show of men
Mhm,
saying that women get it easier or women trying to hustle harder and grind and trying to prove themselves. So
mhm,
a lot of us women are trying to prove ourselves, and that destroys everything. Because when
mhm,
I'm trying to prove myself, I don't know what exactly is the point. Like where exactly does it end? So I'm going to prove myself to someone who has a completely different understanding of women, who does not even understand women for that matter. And we're trying to force. We're trying to
mhm,
become like men. We are blocking men, like blocking us in energetically. So we're feeling more alone. We're not being supported by that masculine energy. And we're also not honoring that masculine energy within ourselves. So our feminine is disoriented, our internal masculine is disoriented. We're not feeling safe with our feelings and emotions, and we're not feeling enough when we're doing things. So we are in this whole mess. Like a lot of women, like every woman I almost talk to, like has this dilemma going on. Like, what do I do? Like I don't even know who I am, but I don't even know what should I do for it. So
right.
we're in this space where women, and especially for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to prove my worth as the firstborn daughter, because my family, like, it's a very common thing in India. Everyone wants a son. So I was not the firstborn son, and I was made to feel it by different family members and everyone in the society, like, and the subconscious programming all throughout, that you're not the son. So proving to that and then coming back and just sitting that day in the office, like just literally, I am picturing myself back again, like how brave it must have been for me to just cry with another woman. And that's the important bit. Like that was the first time I
Mhm.
experienced healthy female friendship in a way to express my emotions. So to answer your question with all of this pretext, it is important for us to feel our feelings. It is important for us to understand where we're coming from, but then also feel it, because just understanding will happen here. But once you feel it, you can actually free yourself and move past and step into something more graceful in your feminine nature.
Yeah, and I did not even realize for quite a while that I was operating from this masculine energy. I didn't even know it. And so obviously I learned all sorts of cool stuff, and I'm not, and I'm grateful. Like I have, like so many strategies and methods and stuff, marketing, sales, and I've done so many different things and I experimented and whatever, but I didn't realize, but I did feel something was off. I did feel that I was playing way too small for like who I thought or how I thought I could play, but I didn't know how to pinpoint that.
Mm.
How I knew something was off, especially because I had powerful experiences like, in relation to meditation and, ages ago, but somehow I did not integrate it in my business, which is bizarre. I would, but it's like business, it's not even, you can't include feminine or I wasn't even thinking in those terms, right? But then when it dawned on me, like, oh my God, I actually have feelings. And oh my God, this is what actually means to feel authentic and to show up authentically as myself with my own voice and not be afraid, like that automatically made me stopped me from being afraid of rejection or judgment or whatever. I don't care. Like I don't care anymore, right? But the sense of just the feeling piece was like, oh my God, I'm alive, you know?
Yes, exactly. Like it's ripping off those layers that we've put on ourselves and like, oh my God, I'm feeling. And that's so beautiful that you actually experienced that.
And the feeling is the ultimate truth. Well, we can unpack that, we can break it down into further pieces, obviously, but generally you can't deny someone's feeling. You're feeling the way you're feeling, and that's it, right? And then when you know that you're feeling, then if somebody says something, who cares?
Mm.
You know? So that is okay, yeah. So that is very, very interesting. So for somebody who is stuck and sort of like struggling, in whatever they're trying to achieve, like, and obviously mostly women in our case, I think the message can be a little or quite different for men and women. But how can they start noticing something and start changing something uh to kind of like to root in themselves more, to find, for me the difficult part was to pinpoint, how do I pinpoint who I really am as it relates to my business? Is there anything they can try and do to access the essence of themselves?
Mm. Okay, I'll give some cool journaling prompts for this. So, first thing would be to ask yourself, what am I really enjoying? What am I really enjoying? Like, what is the process that I'm enjoying? What is the strategy that I'm enjoying? Am I enjoying any part of my business even? Or does it feel like a chore? Is there some cool ideas that I'm getting, but I'm not following them? Or is there something that excites me and it's scary? Is there something that my soul is asking me to do about something completely different, even that's not even a part of the business, but I am really feeling called towards this thing. And am I listening to that? So finding who you are is such a broad question, but in relation to business, I would really focus on the basics. Like, what am I enjoying? What am I not enjoying? Is there a part of my business that I enjoyed before, but I'm not enjoying anymore? Is there a part of my business that felt really, really good and it doesn't anymore? Is there a specific skill that I really want to learn again, or maybe differently, or from a different person or perspective? Because this is something that I had to learn myself, that every teacher teaches the same thing but so differently. And
Hmm.
if I went from one teacher to another, I learned the same basic concepts. Like there was not like the strategy was exactly the same, but the way they delivered it, like one
Mm.
made more sense to me than another. Like that changes. So it so I want you to focus on both in this thing, both as a receiver and as a giver. So as a receiver, like where do you feel compelled to learn? Like who do you really want to learn from, and what do you like about them? And also, what do you like to give people? Because what do you most of the times, not always, what we like to receive is what we like to give as well. So for me, my content always has humor. So if you're coming to me, I would be a little sarcastic, sometimes a bit nasty too. But in my master classes and everything, I make sure that everyone's listening all the time by cracking jokes, by um it's just very simple stuff, but I like people being engaged. I like people being because I've hated boring classrooms. I've been there, but I've hated them. I've gained so much
Right.
value, but hated them. So I want it to be interactive. I want your inner child also to come out and play. Like when we're doing like this big heavy mental stuff, I also want your inner child to shine and be like, oh, I'm loving that. Oh, I want to do that. So sometimes I do this mimicry voices as well. So that is my style. That is how I someone may be like, no, this is not my style, but I want to go in the soothing voice. I want people to experience the slowness. I see that some of that in you, like you take your time to build things on. Oh, I want to go in that slowness. And some of the people are like, Tony Robbins, like, go, go, let's do it. So
Yes.
every one of us, that's not my flavor. Like I kind of like him, but not. So every one of us are so uniquely different. See what you're being attracted to. And although I'm not an expert, but I would love for you to go to your astrology and see your Venus sign, because it will give a lot of ideas about business and attraction. And that's something I learned from someone else, and it helped me. But I don't teach that. But that's a little cheat sheet I'm just giving to everyone who's like, look, love your Venus. My Venus loves a lot of conversation, so I'm just here
Uh,
for it.
yeah, I'm throwing myself into all sorts of things now. Like recently, so I guess what happens for me and is so I had these strong experiences, I had these strong ahas, but it's very internal experience.
Mm.
So I started following all sorts of people, listening to all sorts of stuff to put some words on what the hell that is, like how people talk about it. Because so because I didn't know how to talk. Like, I mean, I can, but I guess there is a level of mapping this internal experience to the external world in order to express what I want to say and translate it into marketing, sales language, whatever, So then so I was like, so now I'm like throwing myself self in all sorts of things and experiencing. And since my very first experience, so much has changed in the industry. It's like for me, because I was not really like very actively following, it's like an explosion of things, it's so actually amazing that actually more and more people are looking, for themselves, and they are doing it beyond this conventional way of personal development, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Can you share more about that? Because I'm feeling interested and curious to hear, like, what is the difference that you've seen from your perspective?
well, so, and actually I'm writing up something about it. So and actually I'm gonna be doing an episode on this, so in more detail, but uh, basically the conventional personal development, the conventional mindset, uh, training for entrepreneurs is very much focused on, the way I see it now, is very much focused on convincing yourself, convincing you can do it.
Mm.
Just take action. You know, you don't need to care what others think, overcoming rejection and handling objections and invent like now, like I use this word manufacturing your even marketing hooks. Now I like saying, your energy is your best marketing hook, as opposed to following, which has its place, but like primarily following just some sort of frameworks, to differentiate yourself. So when you step into that energy, your authentic energy, you automatically differentiate yourself, and you don't necessarily have to have these strictly dialed in hooks. People are going to follow the energy of your messaging rather than, the frameworks. And so what became very obvious to me that the conventional mindset training kind of focuses on surface level identity shifts, but
Mm,
it's like jumping from this identity to the identity, I can do it now, and those kind of things. But that's not the identity that is moving closer you to who you really are. It's
mm,
just yet another. It's like being a Pepsi fan, becoming a Coke fan, you know, it's kind of those kind of things. But it's so for me, yes, we kind of grow that identity or shift those identities. But for me, what needs to happen that your next identity moves you closer, is closer to who you really are. And that is lives on the subconscious. Like, this is where we need to work on the subconsciousness. And one other example is manifestation. A lot of people do manifestations, and entrepreneurs, and those manifestations don't always work. And in fact, and which was true for me, and when I discovered that, I felt relieved, was that actually those manifestations, affirmations, and reading that statement, and I want this and this to happen in this time, blah, 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 you know, made actually me feel worse. And what clicked for me was that my inner me, my body, my subconsciousness was not agreeing with whatever I was manifesting because it was unfamiliar and it felt unsafe. And my body was like, don't go there, you know?
mm,
So that's what I mean, you know, when I talk about, when I say conventional personal development, it's the surface level, some sort of like it's convincing yourself, and it doesn't stick. I have this other analogy that I use sometimes is like it's like gluing wings on a caterpillar and expecting it to start flying,
mm,
you know, rather than proper transformation or transcending, really, you know.
mm.
So it's not for me, it's not about like handling rejection. For me, it's more like making rejection disappear, like it becomes irrelevant,
Mhm.
you know. So what are your thoughts about that?
I have a theory. I When personal development started, I think like the main characters were like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, like all these men, right? And now
Yeah,
you see a lot of women. So somewhere in between, men trained women learned, but they their own flavor. And then they twisted it and experimented, and then more women are coming into the space. I believe that's one of the factors because astrologically too, there's a lot of shift in consciousness. I'm not an expert, but I'm a nerd, so I keep learning all the different things.
yeah,
So we are going through this transformation as a collective where we're all stepping into feminine energy. So I believe a part of it is that feminine force that's coming in and that's taking the world by storm, but in a very
I
gentle
believe
way.
that, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's theory I have. The second thing I feel is now we've had so many experiences, especially since the lockdown and being so isolated. So sitting with ourselves and our emotions came to the forefront. Like you cannot avoid being by yourself, being intimate with yourself. So a lot of us were pushed also into personal development, even when we didn't know or hear of it. Everyone has gone through some sort of shift.
Mm,
Yesterday, I was just,
self-inquiry or yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that is
yeah.
happening for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday I almost not almost, I actually witnessed my mom. setting up a boundary with my dad. And I was in the car sitting at the back and they were both having a conversation and she set a boundary and I was like, oh mama, like she's not
Mhm.
into personal development, but she like just witnessing it and being like, oh, she's learning. I don't know where, I don't know how. She doesn't read books. She's a very religious woman. She follows that. So maybe some guidance or following her own nudges or seeing me being the role model. Anyways, but it was so interesting to witness that and see like, oh,
Mm.
everyone's going through some form of upgrade, whether we see it or not.
Yeah,
But yes, the industry, I don't like the word industry, but the whole scope of things, everything is different because I feel a lot of women have entered. And masculine energy and feminine energy play a very different game.
yeah,
And also to add to what you were saying, like saying yeah, manifestation. So the funny thing about manifestation is we are all manifesting all the time because manifesting is literally
yeah,
creating. But the methods that everyone uses is it's become so mainstream. You know, sometimes when things become so mainstream, they're diluted down and like people don't share like the whole concept, but it's like dripping like diluted drops of water kind of thing.
yeah.
So affirmations are great, but if you don't know how to use them properly or someone hasn't taught you, it doesn't work. So affirmations on their own are bullshit statements. But
I, yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Go on.
if you pair it with inner child trauma work, or if you pair it with actually feeling your feelings, like when you said, like when you said affirmations, you felt worse because that is the inner child trauma or different traumas or like the belief systems and everything coming up. So if you don't have a means to process that, you can keep pushing the affirmations, you will keep having that repelling force, and it's not gonna get you somewhere. Like it's gonna be stuck, and you
Yeah.
feel like both the forces are gonna get stronger because your subconscious is like, process this. And you're like,
Mm.
another affirmation. I'm gonna go into this toxic positive. Like I'm not blaming this in you, but a lot of us have been conditioned to go into the toxic positivity route, and people are just like, oh,
Mhm.
be love and light and think positive. Bullshit. You have to sit with the negative. You have to learn how to be comfortable with the discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think so what happens with manifestation and affirmations, I think what we are trying to do is, when you said we are manifesting all the time, what happens, I think, is that we are trying to manifest with our egos.
Mm,
Whatever manifestation actually happens from your subconsciousness. And that's where there's conflict, you know. So I was not relating to, and not to mention I was manifesting the wrong things. Because it's not, but that's the way most people do, right? And we kind of take that from that old school, personal development as well. And that has its place, and it's like it moved so many people, and it does help to some degree. I mean, no doubt, but it's not necessarily enough,
mm,
especially for women, because my other theory is that, to add to yours, is that most of this is created by men. The way we
yeah.
do entrepreneurship, the whole personal development thing, is coming through men. So
Mm.
that's a different world, right?
It's like the women are getting into things and trying to create a new version of things. Like that's what for me, that's very true. I also feel that there's so much difference in how men and women perceive things. And if women like female leadership is a whole different game because then I strongly believe this. Like there would not be wars. There would not be because women by themselves are very nurturing. So the more in leadership positions and like the actual roles that matter, like the more they can get in the hands of women and women who actually have power and have learned those skills and gotten to that level. Like I imagine a whole new world. Like things would be so different. I feel like there's not going to be so much of egos, and I love men, but some of them are just fighting for the ego.
We need more softness in the world,
Yes.
more flow, and more ease, because guess what? Beautiful things happen from that place, as opposed to our society commonly believes. It's crazy. But it's amazing, right? Okay. Thank you so much. It's been, was really, really great. Um, so many insights, so much wisdom, and I appreciate you on my podcast. And tell if somebody resonated and would like to find you, where can they find you?
I live on Instagram. Please come and say hi. You can find me on Instagram. You can just type my name, Shubhangi Coach, and you'll get it. I'm sure Edita will add it in the description as well. Come say hi. Let me know what you loved about the conversation. If you have any insights to share with me, I would so welcome that. So yeah, like let's have that conversation. Let's create more feminine leaders, more female stepping into leadership because I'm all for it. I'm really here for it.
Yeah, and I'd like to encourage anyone who would like to have a really safe and fun place.
Mm.
So Shubhani is that place on Instagram, and she has so much amazing content. And I'm looking at it now, and it's cheerful and it's fun and it's calming at the same time. So really cool place for anyone who wants to flock to someone. So that's the place. And just to finish this, I have three, like, I ask all my guests three blitz questions, very quick questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, when you hear from grind to grace, what comes to your mind?
It's almost like a machinery churning at first, and then there's like the flow, dancing clothes. I don't know. That was the first time I.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. Pretty much. That's what it is, right? Okay. What change would you like to see in the world?
I would like to see more softness, more gentleness, more feminine leadership, more feminine essence in everything all around the world.
Me too. Me too. And the last one is, what impact would you personally like to make
In the world.
in the world?
Oh wow, this is like my life's mission is to help heal the divine feminine and the feminine energy in women in places and just be the safe space that I wish that I had. And now I'm in a very fortunate place to give to other people. So just being that and being myself and helping like, whatever way that I could. Like that's all there is.
Oh, that's beautiful. And when we definitely need more people like you, and I do believe they're coming. I think
Oh,
it's spreading. So I think we're gonna be okay, right?
yeah.
And for anyone listening, if you resonate with this, please follow, please share. Let's help this thing grow. Let's help this thing reach more people, women. And thank you very much for listening. And until next time,
Thank you so much for having me.
thank you so much.